Japanese American concentration camps impacted the Japanese tremendously and hurt the United States' future reputation.
Japanese attacked U.S. military base and Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on December 7, 1941.
Life before the internment camps for most Japanese Americans was the same as it was for Americans of any other background. Over 127,000 United States citizens living on the West Coast were rounded up and imprisoned after the attack on Pearl Harbor during World War II, just because of being of Japanese ancestry. Japanese Americans were suspected of remaining loyal to their ancestral land.
Until the camps were completed, many Japanese were held in temporary places. Almost two-thirds of the interns were Japanese Americans born in the United States or legal permanent residents. It made no difference that many had never ever been to Japan. Even Japanese American veterans of World War I were forced to leave their homes.
10 camps were finally completed in remote areas of 7 western states. Life in the camps was hard. Housing was simple. They were put in poorly constructed barracks to stay and sleeping. They had to use communal areas for washing, laundry, and eating. Families dined together at communal mess halls, and children were expected to attend schools. Adults had the option of working for a salary of $5 per day. The United States government hoped that the interns could make the camp self-sufficient by farming to produce food.
Recreational activities were organized to pass the time. Some of the interns actually volunteered to fight in Army regiments and went on to distinguish themselves in battle.
However, life in the relocation centers was not easy. The camps were often too cold in the winter and too hot in the summer. The food was mass-produced Army-style grub. The camps were surrounded with barbed wire, and the interns knew if they tried to flee, armed guards who stood watch around the clock would shoot them.
These Japanese Americans, half of whom were children, were confined for up to 4 years. Some Japanese died in the camps due to improper medical care and the emotional stressors they encountered. Many were killed by military guards posted for restricting orders.
At the time, Executive Order 9066 was justified as a military necessity to protect against domestic espionage and sabotage. However, it was later documented that our government had in its possession proof that not one Japanese American, citizen or not, had engaged in espionage. Not one had committed any act of sabotage. In 1944, 2.5 years after signing Executive Order 9066, fourth-term President Franklin D. Roosevelt rescinded the order. The last internment camp was closed by the end of 1945. Almost 50 years later, Civil Liberties Act of 1988 acknowledged that a grave injustice was done and forced Congress to pay each victim $20,000 in reparations. Concentration camps left a number of impacts on the Japanese. Some are sad and angry about the injustice and attribute a number of negative consequences in their own lives to their parents' internment. These include feelings of low self-esteem and accelerated loss of the Japanese culture and language, and experiencing the unexpressed pain of their parents.
Long-term health consequences include psychological anguish as well as increased cardiovascular disease and more post-traumatic stress symptoms of unexpected and disturbing flashback experiences.
Survey information found former internees had a 2.1 greater risk of premature death than did a non-interned counterpart.
After the Japanese were let out of the camps, a majority of them returned to the Pacific coast. They began to start new lives and try to forget what happened. Many of them lost their land when they were brought to the camps. So when they returned, they tried to regain what they had lost. Finally, the Japanese began to live a normal life, except many had trouble finding jobs and getting money loans. After years went by, they started farms and bought new houses. Today, many are suing to be paid back what their family lost. This is the price we pay for racism. This teaches us all that we are all people, no matter what color or race matter.